How's it going, guys? In today's video, I want to do a brief breakdown of a podcast setup that I've been using for my personal company's podcast, Patriot Hard Seltzer. We have launched a podcast, a Patriot podcast, and we are interviewing people from across the country who have served in various capacities: military, veterans, first responders, nurses, any of these groups that have served and are widely recognized as heroes, people who are going above and beyond to serve their communities. We want to recognize them, tell their stories, and get those stories out there. Long story short, I have the video background, but I'm also a host of this podcast. So I'm kind of serving two roles. It's not easy doing both. I want to talk about the setup we've been using, how I've been doing that and serving both roles as the producer of the podcast, but also a host of the podcast, and doing both those things simultaneously. Let's dive into it. So what I wanted to do when we set out to make this podcast was a couple different things. The first goal was make a great looking podcast, as great as we can possibly make it look, while also being travel friendly, because we are flying across the country. We've been to San Diego, we've been to Miami, we've been to New York, probably missing a few other places. We've traveled across the country filming different podcasts already, and we need a kit that is travel friendly, high quality, and something I can do like hands off, where I can set it and leave it, and I can go and be a host and not be monitoring it while we're filming. And I think we've done a pretty good job achieving that, but let's dive into the gear that we use to make that happen. First and foremost, the camera bodies. We are running 3 cameras for this setup. We usually have 2 hosts, myself, my business partner Brandon, and then we have our guest that we are interviewing. And ideally, I'd probably have a 4th camera to do a wide shot of everyone, so we can cut to that from time to time. But once again, travel friendly, can't pack but so much gear. What we're doing right now is a 3 camera setup, 1 camera on each guest. We are running Sony cameras. This is a Sony a7S III. I typically have a7S III, a7 IV, and maybe another a7 IV. So 3 full frame Sony camera bodies that we are running for this. If you're trying to produce and host a podcast, make sure that you have cameras that can record more than 30 minutes. That is a must-have. That would be terrible if every 30 minutes I had to get up from the podcast, get up out of my chair, go reset the cameras, and then start over again and try to get back into the vibe that we were already getting into. Lenses, we're running 3 lenses, obviously 1 on each camera, typically around 85 millimeters, somewhere between 50 to 85 millimeters is what I like to have. I like a medium tight shot, kind of like what we're doing right now for this, but maybe slightly tighter. For tripods, this is where the travel-friendly thing starts playing a big role. You can't have massive, heavy-duty Manfrotto or whatever other brand tripods that are super great for holding heavy loads of cameras on them, and they're super stable and high quality. They're not going to work. You can't have that many in travel. I mean, unless you want 10 different bags, you can't have those big tripods. So what we've been using are the Manfrotto compact action tripods, or the Joby, I think it's also called the compact action tripods. We have a few of those, and we travel with those. They're lightweight, they're very compact, super easy to set up and take down, and don't take up a lot of space in our hard cases. For mics, we are using the Shure MV7 mics. They are comparable, pretty close to the Shure SM7B mics, the iconic mics the Joe Rogan podcast uses. Practically every podcast out there uses these days, but they're a little bit more expensive for 1, and 2, they sometimes require Cloud Lifter or some sort of other audio module to increase the gain and give that the power that it needs to get the right audio out of it. And we don't want to mess with that because we're traveling and need to be low maintenance. So we went with the MV7s, and they've been great. This quality sounds great. If you get closer, the closer you are, tech generally, the better it sounds on these type of mics. Sometimes people are literally right up on them, but generally speaking, closer the better. Don't be too close to where you're literally to where you're licking the damn microphone, but pretty close, and they give great quality. We haven't had any complaints. And these are XLR mics. They do make a USB version of them you can plug into a computer, but we are running these into an external recorder, the Zoom F3. The Zoom F3 is very unique because not only does it have 2 XLR inputs into them, but it also allows you to record 32-bit float, which is going to be huge for me as a host and a producer, because I don't have to worry too much about audio levels. I can set the Zoom F3, get it recording, and just leave it and not worry about what the audio levels are. With 32-bit float, you can pull that back down. If it gets too high and it starts to peak, you can just pull that right back down, not worry about it one bit. And that has worked out great for us. You don't have to worry about it, so you can just leave it. If I had to be monitoring audio levels, that would make my job 10 times harder, because I'd be worried and stressed constantly while we're filming the podcast if someone's being too loud and we're clipping that audio when it's sounding bad. Don't have to worry about it. So I can set it with the Zoom F3 and leave it. We have 2 of those Zoom F3s because we have 3 different mics. Each Zoom F3 has 2 audio inputs for XLR. So we have 2 hooked up into one hooked up into the other. that works great. Now, mic stands. These mics are held on by Gator Frameworks mic stands. I will link all of this stuff down below in the description, by the way. But the Gator Frameworks mic stands have been great for us. They're a little on the large side, but they have worked great. And my biggest concern with the mic stands was, many of you might be able to speak to this, if you have a mic stand that is cheap and crappy, low budget, sometimes you start to get mic droop, where you set it, you crank that thing as tight as it'll go on that boom arm, and it slowly just starts sliding down. And I've had that happen during a podcast before, where I'm constantly trying to like lift up the mic, pick it back up because it's falling. We don't want that to happen. So you want to make sure you have good quality mic stands that aren't going to have that happen with them, and balance that with size and weight. So these are kind of on the line of that, but they have worked well enough for us up to this point. If you're typically sitting at tables for your podcast, you could totally use a very cheap tabletop setup. That saves time, money, and space. But what we end up doing are typically in chairs, sitting back, not at a table. So we have to use the mic stands, and that's just a trade-off we have to go with. Now, lighting. Lighting is going to be the most challenging part, because if you want to get good lighting, it's going to require a lot of lights, a lot of stands, a lot of cables, and it just takes up a lot of space. Not to mention soft boxes and domes and all of those things to make it softer and more diffused. It's a challenge. This is where I struggled the most with this podcast setup, to make it look right in the way we wanted it to look. Like I said, we wanted it to look cinematic, professionally done. We don't want it to look like some cheap podcast where we just set up in a room, use the ambient lights in there, and just rolled. We could have done that, but with my video background, I need to have something that I'm proud of and something that looks good, and it goes a long ways to making your final product of your podcast look more professional. So with that being said, when it comes to lighting, the biggest and most important piece of our kit is right above me right here. This is the Aperture Lantern. I'm going to take a video of this right now so you guys can see this, but this is a big, huge dome, circular, spherical lantern. And what the lantern does is it takes this light that you're putting into it from we have an Aperture Amaran 100X for the light source. What it does is it takes that light and it throws it in every single direction evenly. So you don't have to worry about with a dome where it's very directional. You're pointed at one person, one direction. What this does allows you to light 3-4 different people sitting kind of around each other evenly with the same soft light source. So I am using this right now as my key light on me, but I could also have someone sitting over here, over there, over there. Everyone sitting around this has the exact same soft lighting on them. It's a beautiful solution for a multi-person podcast. It has worked so well for us. It truly saves you on the number of different lights you'd have to have otherwise, so you don't have to have the cost of buying all those lights, the space and the weight of all those different lights coming with you. It has been a game changer for us, and I cannot recommend this enough. If there's one piece of gear in this entire podcast setup that is unique to us, that I don't see other people doing quite as often, that I would 100% recommend, it's the lantern. Now, the other lights that we're using beyond this as our key light, the other fill lights we're using for our setup and backlights for our setup are the Amaran P60X LED panels. These have been great for us because they were cheap, very cost effective. I want to say they're like $140 per, which in the scheme of things is very inexpensive for a light like this. It's very high quality, can get very, very, very bright. And these also came with a soft box that can attach onto them to diffuse the LED panel and make it a little bit softer, more aesthetic lighting that wraps around the face a little bit more instead of being so harsh and direct. We've really liked these. We have 3 of them. So we have our main key light, and then we have 3 of these as back or fill lights as needed. Typically, I'm using them as backlights, but if you set up people, there's a certain arrangement. I'll try to put a visual up on this. There's a certain arrangement where you can have a backlight on one person that is providing fill light on another person in the interview setup. So I'll show a diagram of that here, but that's what we've tried to do. It just reduces the overall amount of lights you'd have to have, and it's a very smart way to go about setting up these type of small traveling podcasts like ours. Now for light stands, this is where it gets a little tricky again, because you don't want to take up too much space in your bags or cases that you're traveling with. These can get big, heavy, and expensive. So what we went with, very cheap options. First and foremost, for the 3 different LED panels that we have, we're using eMart brand from Amazon, cheap, plasticky, not very good quality, but get the job done light stands. They're very small, lightweight, collapse super easily, and can pack up super easily in a case. We have 3 of those, 1 for each of the LED panels. And then for the big light, the main light, you have to boom that over your set so it's in the middle of everyone, because like I said, if you're trying to light multiple people, you want it to be even on each of them. You really need to boom this lantern into the middle of your set from outside of the set. So what we have for that is the Impact boom stand, boom arm light stand. It's the Impact brand light stand with a boom arm. I'll link it down below as well. And with that, the biggest caveat is going to be you're going to need counterweight. You're going to have something to counterbalance the weight of the Light Plus lantern that you're putting out over the set. That weight is extended out past the base of the light stand, so you're going to need something on the other side, whether it be sandbags or something else that you're using to counterbalance it. To be honest, what we use a lot of times are water bottles. There seem to be water bottles wherever we are setting up for the podcast. We need something with weight in it that can fit in there that's pretty dense to throw into the counterweight bags. We throw water bottles in there all the time. It's not pretty, but it gets it done. Almost to the end, one of the last pieces that we have of our kit are these RGB tube lights. We have two of these Viltrox brand tube lights that have been perfect for our needs. What we do with them is we will set them up behind in the background. They're not a fill light, they're not a backlight. They are illuminating the background to provide some sort of texture and color in the shot beyond what we've already set up, beyond the person and the subject. Just make the background a little more interesting. If you have a plant back there, you can add one of these and illuminate the plant, and all of a sudden that plant becomes more dramatic and interesting than just a plain dull dark plant that doesn't have any light on it. So we use these type of things, we shine them up against walls like this. There's a lot of creative ways you can use tube lights to enhance your shots. And lastly, but definitely not least, and potentially one of the most important things, are the cases that we pack all of this up into. The main case that we put most of this gear into is the Pelican 1650 case. It is a double layered case with foam in it. We used a pluckable foam. Not sure if that's the best idea. It's definitely wearing down a little bit. But we use the Pelican 1650 case, and in this we throw the 3 light panels. We throw the 100x, aperture 100x light, not the whole lantern, but just the light itself. We throw all of the XLR cables, all of the USB-C cables. We throw all 3 of these mics. We throw all 3 cameras, all 3 lenses. What else? We put the Zoom F3 recorders in there. We put the SD cards in there, the batteries in there. That holds a bunch of the equipment. But what that doesn't hold is the big, huge case that this lantern comes in. It doesn't hold the light stands, the mic stands, or the tripods, or the tube lights. So all of these other things we put in 2 different long gun style cases. They are also by Pelican. They're the Vault cases. I believe they're the V770. I'll link them down below as well. But those cases are longer, so we can fit all of the different long items that we have. And between these, we have 3 hard cases that we travel with. I can't say it's easy for one person to do. If you have 2 people, it is totally manageable. We can get through an airport and do that just fine. Between all 3 of them, sometimes they are overweight, but they're never oversized. None of them are oversized bags. They're just overweight, which will mean that you're going to have to pay a little bit of a fee, but we just eat that and deal with it, because what else are you going to do? I don't know where we can make a whole lot of cuts in this podcast setup while still having the quality that we have, that we deliver on these. So hopefully this was valuable to you guys, breaking down the podcast setup. And the most important thing to keep in mind is that this is what I use to be able to be a producer and a host of the podcast. If I were only serving one of those roles, this would be very different. But trying to do both and trying to travel with this stuff, make it light enough, compact enough we can travel around the country with it, that is a big deal as well, and that changes things a lot. So within those limitations, I think we have a great setup. Very happy to have done what we've done with it, and hopefully you guys have learned something here in this video. If you have any questions, let me know down below. Would love to talk about this podcast setup, where we can improve, where you might want to improve, and you could take notes from what we're doing. I don't know. Maybe we can all be collaborative here, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.